They say there are over 3 billion active Facebook accounts in use today. But what if we told you that nearly 40 years ago, an entire village just up and vanished? Their houses were left unlocked, their cars were parked in the driveway, and their dinner was left on the table. Even more disturbing, authorities have never been able to identify them or find any trace of them since. This is one of the strangest mysteries in modern history, but they weren't prepared for the answer they got. The police put together a list of every single person known to live in the area. With the help of the FBI, they traced every lead and followed every possible theory. But it seemed like everyone had disappeared off the face of the earth. They had donated large sums to charities, but refused to speak at events or give interviews. They had been carefully selected by the investors. Each resident had been given a background check, and in most cases, they accepted their offer to move to the town without hesitation. For example, one couple said yes as soon as they heard they wouldn't have to work again in their lives. Another family accepted the offer because it would allow them to pay off their debts. And while you're at it, don't forget to subscribe so you'll never miss an upload. And now for a little bit of trivia. Here's a fun fact about one of the unsolved mysteries covered in this video. And yet another woman moved in because she wanted to be part of an experiment. This number is relatively low compared to the United States, which sees around 540,000 people go missing each year. Check out the link in the description for more information on other strange mysteries you can help solve. Thanks for watching. See you next time. Despite the relatively low numbers, there are still many unsolved cases of missing persons in Canada, and the case of the missing town of Amityville is one of the most perplexing. They funded hospitals and schools, but always demanded that their contributions be kept anonymous. But some believe that the entire thing might have been a plot to hide the investors' crimes. One theory suggests that the investors bought the land in order to build a neighborhood where they could move their mistresses and illegitimate children. This would explain why they went to such great lengths to keep their identities hidden. It also explains why the people of Amityville were so eager to accept their offer, because doing so would allow them to escape their problems and start a new life. It was almost as if they didn't want anyone to know that they existed. The police spent years following leads and chasing down rumors, but they were unable to connect the investors to anything suspicious. Newspapers ran stories about the missing town, but none of the tips panned out. Days turned into weeks, weeks turned into months, and the entire community remained abandoned. People from surrounding areas said they had no idea what had happened, and some couldn't even remember the town being there. However, this is just one theory, and there's absolutely no proof to back it up. In the end, the truth behind the strange case of the abandoned town of Amityville may never be uncovered. We may never know what happened to the residents or why they left their homes and vanished without a trace. But one thing is for sure, this mystery will continue to baffle investigators and keep people guessing for years to come. An elderly woman named Helen Viola read about the mystery in a newspaper article and quickly called the police. She explained that she used to own a farmhouse near the edge of town, and that she remembered seeing the construction of the neighborhood several decades earlier. She also recalled the name of the developer who created the settlement. Confused, the police decided to check public records to see how long the settlement had actually been around. But what they found shocked them. Local tax records showed that the town had only been built within the last decade. Not only that, but the families who lived there had been there for less than a year. It's me. Welcome to my channel. Join me today as we look at the unsettling case of the ghost town of Amityville. In 1983, a group of Canadian surveyors were working on a new natural gas pipeline when they came across a small rural community. But after exploring further, they found that all the homes had been abandoned for quite some time. He told the FBI everything he knew about his father and the development of the housing estate. According to the man, his father had retired to Florida after selling the land to a mysterious investment group. The son claimed that his father had always planned to keep the identity of the buyer a secret, but he didn't know why. Still, the FBI had renewed hope that the mystery would finally be solved. With the help of the elderly witness and the developer's son, they located the now deceased leader of the investment group and uncovered the names of all the investors. They were wealthy individuals from New York City who used the Shell Corporation to buy the land anonymously. The surveyors reported their findings to the police, who then contacted the local sheriff. They organized a search of the town but could not locate anyone, and with no answers, the entire region was eventually placed under a sort of quarantine. No one was allowed to enter or leave, and everyone was instructed to spread the word so that someone would come forward and explain what was going on. But to this day, nobody has ever come forward. The settlement sat on the edge of a forest, not far from the US-Canada border. At first glance, it looked like your typical scenic neighborhood. There were neat rows of well-maintained homes, lush green grass, and a school surrounded by sprawling farmlands. However, upon closer inspection, the surveyors realized something was wrong. Every single home was completely empty. Cars were parked in driveways, and the front doors were unlocked. At first they thought this was some kind of sick joke played by the local residents. Even more strange was that the police soon found that the locals had seemingly vanished without a trace. All their belongings were still in the house. Toys remained strewn across the floor. Books were left open on nightstands, and food sat on the kitchen table, as if the residents had just stepped out for some fresh air and never returned. Authorities even went through the local post office and found thousands of pieces of mail addressed to the people living in the homes. Clearly, these people hadn't just vanished into thin air. So why was the town abandoned? Where did everyone go? And how come no one else ever come forward to claim their property or tell the police what happened? The police began knocking on doors and checking in with neighboring towns to see if anyone knew what had happened to the residents of Amityville. If the town had been built just a few years earlier, and the residents had only been there for a short amount of time, where could they have possibly gone? It wasn't until 1991, 8 years after the initial discovery of the town, that the FBI finally made some headway in the case. With this new lead, the FBI tracked down the developer's son, who agreed to meet with them and answer their questions. However, the police soon realized that despite their money, the investors were very private people. In fact, their research revealed something even stranger. The people who lived in Amityville weren't just random people picked from the phone book. But what exactly was the purpose of this experiment? That question has never been answered. This theory is also supported by the fact that there were many young families living in the town. Now it's time to make your voice heard. What do you think happened to the residents of Amityville? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. Every year, roughly 600 people go missing in Canada. Now it's time for you to take a stab at solving this mystery.